The summer solstice has finally arrived in my garden. Plants are growing, flowers are blooming, the insects are active. Summer is finally here. And as much as I love this time of year, the summer solstice is still not my favorite gardening day. Hi, I'm GardenerScott, and I discuss everything gardening so that you can become a better gardener. Today, I'm going to share some of my thoughts about the summer solstice. The summer solstice is a special day. It only comes twice a year, once in the northern hemisphere and once in the southern hemisphere. And it's the longest day of the year. The sun is out longer on this day than any other, which is one reason why we like it so much. It's warmer, it's sunnier, we like to get outside. And it's had a special part in mankind's history for millennia. You probably know that Stonehenge in England is oriented to highlight sunrise on the summer solstice. And there are many other civilizations that have built monuments to recognize this particular day. For many of us, we're right at the peak of our gardening season. If you're in a zone or an area that has a long growing season, well, you've been enjoying your crops for probably quite a while. For gardeners like me, I've just started. I just put my peppers in last week. These tomatoes went in at the same time. I do have some other tomatoes and peppers that went in 2 weeks ago, but I'm just getting started in my gardening. The sad part about it is the summer solstice identifies for me that I've only got about 3 months left before my season is over. So everything that I've just started only has 3 more months to grow before the frost comes and basically signals the end of my growing season. 6 months ago, I did a video that explained why the winter solstice is my favorite gardening day. Because I'm always looking forward, I'm always planning, I'm always dreaming about my garden. And it's very easy when you're standing in a field of snow to look forward and to have that enthusiasm about the planning and about what the garden will be. That's why I like the winter, because the garden is growing in my mind. Therefore, it's growing beautifully. But for the summer solstice, reality begins to set in. Now, the plants are here, the plants are growing, and I can see exactly what my gardening season is probably going to end up looking like. It's not the dream anymore, it's plants in the ground. And because of my climate and the weather and some of the things that didn't happen in my planning, there's a lot of things about the growing season that the summer solstice highlights, and it's not all good. One of my winter visions was to grow a whole bunch of pickling cucumbers and then make pickles. And so this bed has squash and the pickling cucumbers, and that bed over there has squash and pickling cucumbers. Well, it was a great plan. And a couple weeks ago, I sowed the seeds. The squash is doing pretty well, but the cucumbers aren't looking so good. Recently had a hailstorm, and the squash was bigger and was able to ride out that storm. But these small cucumber seedlings have definitely started to suffer, especially the ones in that bed over there. The small plants were devastated by the hail. And so now as I look forward to the time that's left in my growing season, I'm not sure if those cucumbers are strong enough to survive. And a couple of the seedlings looked like they were damaged beyond saving. So I'll have to sow some more seeds and wait for germination and hopefully not have another hailstorm. And maybe I'll get the harvest that I was looking for. Again, the vision versus reality makes the winter solstice look a little bit better than the summer solstice. Now, don't get me wrong, I really do like this time of year. I like coming out to a plant like my peas and pulling off a little pea pod and enjoying amazing flavor. So there's a lot of benefits to the summer solstice time of year. It's just, probably like many of you that have been doing this for a while, my plans and my visions are always grander than what actually happens. So the beds didn't get built as quickly as I had hoped. The weather didn't cooperate. I was late putting a lot of things in the ground. Some of the things that I did get put in the ground were killed when we had an overnight temperature of 7 degrees back in April. And so it's just another tough gardening year. Well, the summer solstice, because it's a day that the world highlights, kind of brings it all down and focuses on what went wrong. But there is a lot that did go right. The solstice is a good day to take a look at your garden and to try to highlight what's going right. Like this asparagus. Every single root I planted sprouted and is growing and is doing great. My strawberries are doing great. The rhubarb, the comfrey, all doing very well. The plants that I put in last year came back and I couldn't be happier. They're actually growing better than expected. A lot of the beds that I had intended on building were built and were filled with soil and are currently growing plants. So there's a lot of success that's taken place in the last 6 months. A lot of that planning and a lot of those visions really are taking place in the garden right now. So you do have to stop, smell the roses, eat a pea, and enjoy what you've accomplished. I'm very happy with how my concrete block bed turned out, along with this cattle panel trellis. And the tomatoes are spectacular. I grew them all from seed and then transplanted them a few weeks ago. They all made it through the hailstorm. They look wonderful. But again, the summer solstice highlights that every day from now on is going to have a little bit less sunlight. And so we only have 3 months. Should be plenty of time for these tomatoes to grow and give me a harvest, but every day brings us a little bit closer to the end of the season. And while the summer solstice is not my least favorite day, well, it's far from my favorite day, because once I realize the season is coming to an end, it becomes kind of a sad day. I love gardening. I love getting out here. I love the planting. I love the building. I love the growing. I really love the harvesting. And to recognize and have to acknowledge that soon that will all be over for the year, that's a little disheartening. And that's why I'm not a big fan of the summer solstice. I try to treat it as much as possible as just another gardening day. But in the back of my mind, I know I'm racing against the clock, racing against the calendar. And if I haven't done something yet, it probably needs to be done now, or the plants and the harvest aren't going to happen this year. I think the winter solstice is a great opportunity to get out into the garden when it's bare and everything is dormant, and you can look around and figure out where you're going to put beds and where you're going to put plants and start that planning. By the time the summer solstice comes, it's a little late to change horses in midstream because the seeds are already in the ground, the plants are already in the ground. You can modify how you're growing them, but there isn't a lot as far as the planning with the plants. But you can take a look at the planning of the garden. Are the beds working out? Do you need more beds? Is there a structure that still needs to be built? Is there something that needs to be changed? Is there something to expand? During the middle of the growing season, you can really take a look at how you garden and identify your deficiencies. I think the summer solstice really helps you do that. And once you've identified those deficiencies, make note of them in your garden journal so that when you spend that time in winter, around the winter solstice, thinking about next year, you can use this year's lessons and this year's thoughts and start developing the planning because of the summer solstice. So yes, I'm a little sad that it's the summer solstice because it seems like it's taken so long to get here. And now that it's here, every day I lose a little bit of sunlight to finish the projects that still need to be done and grow the plants that haven't started growing yet. But to combat that sadness, all I have to do is just reach down, pluck off a pea pod, and eat it. And look at the rest of the garden. Realize my garlic is just a couple weeks away from harvest, and I'll have dozens of heads that will prepare me for next year. And the space where the garlic came out of is all ready for putting in a crop that will grow into the fall. So there's still reason to be optimistic. There's still some wonderful gardening days ahead. I'm just not going to have as much sunlight to do it. What do you think? What are your thoughts about the summer solstice? Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And how do you use it in your garden planning and your garden preparation? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't seen that video about the winter solstice thoughts, you can check it out right here. And also consider watching this one as well. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.